Hey crochet friends! Welcome to the second episode of my crochet school, taking beginners to experienced crocheters. So hopefully it's easy enough for even the person that struggles the most with crocheting. I'm trying to give you as much info as possible so you can find the right tools for you, understand how everything works. And I know that so many people have tried crocheting before and haven't been able to get into it because they've struggled. The aim for this series is to make sure that you don't give up. So, second episode today is called What the Hook? And this is purely about different hook sizes, how you hold the hook, and everything related to the crochet hook to hopefully help you to make the right choice with what works best for you. I have got lots of different slides coming up shortly with the different types of crochet hooks and what are the pros and cons with each, and how expensive they are, that kind of thing. But I've just got a few in front of me now, just as an example, just to show you what they're like. I say I've got a few, I've literally got so many, it's a complete mess. But just as examples, these are aluminium hooks. They're all packaged like that. I've never opened them because they came free with a magazine subscription that I do with the Disney Crochet. I've got other ones here, which are, these are ergonomic hooks. I'm just trying to focus that camera for you, which it won't. There we go. They're ergonomic hooks, and these were an Amazon set, and they're really good to crochet with. But the problem I find with these is they can get quite grubby and quite dirty because the numbers will sort of rub off while you're crocheting. I don't know if you can see that on the hook just there. I've got one aluminium hook here, and it's good for beginners just to learn with. But the problem with the aluminium hooks is they are so thin. There's not much of a grip to them, so it can get uncomfortable using for long periods. I've got one Addy hook here, and the difference with the Addy hook is this part of the hook is really, really long, so I find it's quite a distance away from my work. And some people prefer this to have a longer part of the hook. This is called the workspace. So some people prefer to have a longer workspace, and it's especially good if you've got several loops on your hook with certain stitches. But for me, it's uncomfortable because I feel like I'm too far away when I'm crocheting and I'm going in and out, and it causes my wrists and my elbows to hurt more. So my favourite out of the lot, which is this set just here, and it is, if you can see at the top of the box there, the Clover Crochet Hook Set, which is these ones, which I've pointed out to you many times in the video that I have done in the past. And yes, it is very similar to the ergonomic set that I've got from Amazon. But just, I don't know why, there's something about the workspace on these which is just so much smoother, and it just goes through so much easier. And it does mean that your crochet ends up taking a lot less time because you're not snagging on the wall, and it's just going through quicker and just making it a more pleasant experience. But everyone does have their own opinions. I've noticed with videos that I've shared on TikTok that everyone likes to comment with their favourite hooks. So this really is all down to personal preference. So as much as I'm letting you know what I like here, it's probably best that you do make up your own minds. So I'm going to get on to sharing my slides now. And this is information on each type of specific hook that you can get. So the first type of hooks that I find are actually the worst, and they're called plastic hooks. They're normally given as a freebie, or you can pick them up really cheap in places, like pound shops. But they will often come with magazine subscriptions. But as I said before, I got aluminium ones with the current subscription I did. So even given as a freebie now, it seems that plastic ones aren't being given away because they are awful. You will find with them that the hook space on them isn't streamlined. There are sort of, I suppose, seams in them, and those joins won't be smooth, and there'll be rough pieces of plastic there that come through and snag on your project, which means that you're constantly splitting the wool and you're having to go back and start again and reform different loops and things like that. And really, they are just not worth the time unless you can pick up a set that are really smooth. And then they're kind of handy to keep around should you go traveling or anything like that. I know a lot of people have a separate set that they can take on aeroplanes with them because they don't want to accidentally get their expensive metal sets confiscated, and they don't mind if these freebie sets get chucked away. So they are good to keep around should you wish to travel with them, but don't use them on an everyday basis. They can be really uncomfortable on your hands because they're not ergonomic, and it does take longer to crochet with them because they constantly will snag on your project. And like the end part of this says, they make you lose the will to live because they're so uncomfortable to use. And I can't tell you how many times I have had a tantrum and thrown my crochet across the room because they're such a pain in the arse, to put it bluntly. That's all I can say. On to the next set. Now, in my personal opinion, wooden sets are just as bad as plastic sets. But I have had comments on some of my TikTok videos saying that some people have managed to find wooden sets that are quite comfortable to use. But again, this video is purely based on my own opinion and just to give you all the info that I've collected over the years of crocheting, and then you guys need to make up your own minds what you find better. Obviously, I've got various different conditions that affect my muscles, affect my hands, my wrists, my elbows. So I do need to use the hook that is best for me and more comfortable for me. Otherwise, I do end up in a lot of pain after long periods. And I found with wooden ones, they're exactly the same as the plastic ones. But then again, the only wooden ones I ever found were ones that I picked up from Pound Stretcher. I know that there are more expensive sets that you can get. And there was a lady that said on TikTok that she managed to find a set on Amazon that where she discovers she's in pain from crocheting too long, that she does tend to use her wooden ones. They are the most comfortable for her. But again, this is all just my opinions. So I found with the wooden ones that I had that they weren't sanded down well, and they had a lot of splinters in them, which again meant that they snagged on the wool. And then it's difficult to build up a rhythm with crocheting because you're constantly having to stop where it's snagging and splitting the wool. And again, they was just as frustrating to use as the plastic ones that I have used in the past. If you're looking for something that's still cheap but is a bit quicker to work with, your next step up would be the aluminium hooks. Now, they can be quite cold to hold, which is great in the summer, but not so much in the winter, and then they do take a while to sort of warm up in your hands. But that is obviously something that's overcome after a few minutes of holding them. These ones are cheap, often free, with different magazine subscriptions and things like that, but you can pick them up in pound shops. You can get them on Amazon, but you do find that you're paying a bit more for them. So if you wanted to give these ones a go, I would go with sites like eBay and things like that, so you can get them cheaper. You will find that they are uncomfortable to hold for long periods because they're not ergonomic. And whilst they do slide through the stitches better than the plastic and wooden hooks, they still aren't the smoothest hook that you can use. So you will find that it does slow your work down, but not as much as the plastic and wooden ones will. So these, I find, are the best ones to start with, to practice with, to learn with, just so you can see if you do enjoy crocheting. And then from there, I would move on to better hooks once you decide to make that investment in crocheting, if you decide that you do want to carry on with it. If you decide that you like the aluminium hooks and they're working well for you, but you want something slightly more comfortable and something perhaps a bit prettier, you can go for handmade hooks. As you can see from the picture, you can get them in any style, looks-wise, and they can be really, really pretty. You're best finding these on places like Etsy or not on the high street, because you will find that these will come from small businesses rather than on sort of large places like Amazon. I suppose eBay is another place that you could get these from. Because they are handmade, they're not ergonomic, so they're not going to be as comfortable as the ergonomic hooks that you can get. And they also can be quite expensive because obviously they are being handmade by small businesses, and they do take that bit of time to do. And then if you're having problems with the hook of the aluminium hook, you're going to have the same problems with the handmade hooks because they are still the same hooks. So if you don't enjoy the aluminium hooks, you're best off upgrading and going to the ergonomic hooks. So my set of ergonomic hooks are the first set that I bought after using cheap hooks, that I thought, actually, these are the ones that I should be using long term. They're a lot more comfortable, the workspace and the hook is a lot smoother. And it was buying a set of these that made me think, actually, I really do enjoy crocheting. This isn't frustrating me anymore. My hook isn't getting snagged on my wool. I now understand why people love doing this. So sets like these can be picked up from sort of £6 onwards, but more commonly around the £10 mark on Amazon or eBay. They're really comfortable to hold because they are ergonomic. I haven't found a better hook that I would like to use for long periods. It's definitely these that are more comfortable, especially with my muscular issues. They don't snag on your wool or your stitches because they have got a smooth hook on them, which means that it is quicker when you're crocheting. They don't slow you down. But you will find that if you decide to go for the branded versions of the ergonomic hooks, that they can be that bit pricier. So the next jump up price-wise after the ergonomic hooks is an electronic hook. Now, when I first started crocheting, I started with an aluminium set, and then the next set that I went for is the electronic hook. I went for the electronic hook purely because I do a lot of crocheting at night, and especially during the winter months, I can find that it's really difficult to see the stitches, especially when you're working with a darker coloured wool. So the appeal with the electronic hook is that it has a light within it, and the whole workspace and the hook then lights up so you can see your work easier. And it is a really good hook, and the plastic tends to be smoother on the hooks than on the sort of cheaper plastic hooks that I showed you in the first slide. But again, it's still not perfect because it is plastic and they can be really squeaky and the wool doesn't glide over the workspace and the hook properly. So whilst it did have the plus point of having the light on there, it still wasn't perfect. And I was using mine before there was a set that came out with a row counter on it, so I didn't have a row counter on mine. And then I had to eventually upgrade and swap because I was finding that I mostly used the 4mm hook size, and where the space is, the join that you join the top bit, so the hook bit to the handle of the hook, the joint became really loose. So I was trying to crochet and I was putting my hook through my work, and then the hook was just falling off into my lap because the join had just completely ground down from overuse. I think I probably only had it about 8 months, so they don't last very long at all, sadly. But yes, if you've got really bad eyesight, this is probably one that you should start with, or actually start with a different one. And then if you look online, especially on Amazon, I've seen it, you can find like little torches that wrap around your neck. No, they won't strangle you, don't worry, that sounded really bad. So they're kind of like torches that are in a like rope shaped, and then you can loop it into a C shaped and just hang it over the back of your neck, so you've got a light either side. That is a much better option than using the electronic sets. So those are all the kind of materials that your hooks can be made from. I'm going to show you a few slides now on different branded sets, and they're all made again of different materials, but they are all ergonomic hooks. These prim hooks are made of plastic. I haven't used all of these sets, but I have done a lot of research looking at different reviews and opinions on what they're like. Now, these ones are quite expensive. You can pick up a set, as you can see. These have only got 5 hooks in the set, and they tend to be between £35 and £50, which I think is an awful lot of money. I haven't personally tried these hooks myself. I have read in the reviews that they're extremely comfortable to hold, and they're really good at gliding through your work, which of course, as I explained before, definitely speeds up your crocheting. One problem that people have found is that they can be really squeaky going through the wool, which can be really annoying as you're working with them, and this is because they're made of plastic. People have reported that they're made for people with bigger hands, and they've got the extra long workspace on them, like the Addy hook that I showed you earlier, which again is down to personal preference. For me, it's not something that I enjoy working with, but some people do prefer having that longer workspace there. So this is another type of prim hook. You will find that most branded companies that sell the hooks do sell different types of hooks, and that is again just to offer a wide range to find what is best for you, I guess. So these are the ergonomic crochet hooks from Prim, and these are the ones that have the metal hooks on them rather than the plastic. So from the reviews I've read, again, I haven't used these myself, they are very comfortable to work with, and they do have the shorter workspace, which appeals to more people. Again, they're still expensive. They're around the £40 mark for the set, so it can be a bit out of people's price range. And they're quicker to work with because they have got the smoother workspace on them. The only down point that I have found from these, apart from them being expensive, is that a few people have said in reviews that the hooks can come loose from the handles occasionally, which is a real shame when you are spending so much on a particular brand and you want that crochet hook to last. So last but by no means least, my favourite set to work with are the Clover Amour hooks. That's AMOUR. You can see it on the top left of the box there. Clover are another brand that do several different types of hooks. These are the Amour ones. You can also get a soft touch one, and I do believe they do wooden hooks as well. I only started using Clover Amour hooks during the summer, so probably about 4 months ago, I lost my 4mm hook. So I looked on Amazon as I desperately needed one the next day for next day delivery, and the only one that I could find being sold singly was a Clover Amour 4mm hook. So that was my first experience with the brand, and I haven't looked back since. I thought that they were going to be exactly the same as the cheaper ergonomic set that I had, but whilst they feel the same to hold, the workspace and the hook on the clover are more, in my opinion, is just another level. They just glide through your stitches like butter, and they're just so quick to work with, so smooth, and I genuinely would not try another hook now if a different set was given to me. I know everyone has their own opinions, and from my TikTok videos I have discovered that some people don't think that Amore hooks are that great. But again, it is all down to personal preference, and these just are my favourite hooks to work with. So now that I've found my favourite set, I don't feel the need to spend out and buying any other hooks and waste even more money. And I'm just so happy that I discovered these ones. So now you know about the different types of hooks that you can get. You might have noticed with each set there is lots of different ones, and they're all different sizes. It's better off me showing you with these. I'm sure you can see from here that this one is extremely thin at this end, where this one is a lot thicker. If I pick up some to show you here, this one here, I don't know if you can see, that says 5mm. I've got one here, can you see on that one it says 4mm. This one here is 2. And the difference with all of that is nothing to do with the handle size here. It's all to do with your workspace, which is just here. And you'll notice that this one is thicker than this one. Or I've got an 8mm here, and that one is a lot thicker. And the reason we have different size crochet hooks is there are different thicknesses of wool out there. And so that means that when we are crocheting different projects, if we want to do a project that ends up quite lacy and we're using really thin wool, we would then use a thin hook to make sure that the work stays really thin. We could use a fat hook with a really thin wool, but it would just end up with huge holes and huge loops in it. And it's all really about experimenting once you start writing your own crochet patterns to see how you want the final piece of your work to look. But at the moment, whilst you're doing your crocheting with patterns, you will find that they will tell you what size hook you need to use. So just go with what it says on your hook. There are sort of various sort of rules that people try to stick to. So for an example, if you're using a DK wool, you would tend to go for around a 4mm hook. If you're then upgrading and going to an Aran or a worsted wool weight, you would go between a 5 and a 6mm hook. And then if you're going to a chunky or a super chunky, that's when you're going up into your really fat crochet hooks, really. But as I said before, you can swap that around depending on how you want your final project to look. But all of that you don't need to worry about at the moment. You just need to pick up the hook size on what pattern you're using says to use. And that way it's really easy and you don't need to worry about what you need to do and what hook you need to use. For the moment, I'm just giving you that knowledge and why we've got the different sizes. So the last part of this video is just to tell you about the different ways you can hold the hooks. There really is no right or wrong, everyone can do it different. But there's two main ones, and they are called the knife hold or the pencil hold. So just to show you, I've got my hook in my hand here. One of the holds is like this, and this is the pencil hold. A lot of people will put their finger here and when they're crocheting, or some people keep it back on the handle. And then the other way to grip it is to hold it like this, and this is the knife hold. And then you would go into your project like this. I'm not going to show you how to crochet whilst holding them this way, because I fully believe with crocheting that you need to hold the hook and hold the yarn exactly in which way is more comfortable for you. I've seen a lot of people fail because they say it hurts their hands, they can't get to grips with how to hold the hook properly, the yarn properly. but it really doesn't matter how you hold them as long as you're holding the yarn in one hand and the hook in the other. So just to show you again, you could hold this way or you can hold this way. And it really doesn't make a difference how you do it. I suppose you could even hold it this way if you wanted to, but I'm not sure that would be overly comfortable. But it really is about finding what's best for you and what's more comfortable for you. I personally find it more comfortable this way, but whichever way you're holding it, just make sure you can see the hook there. Make sure it's facing towards you. So I think I've managed to give you all the information I can on hooks. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm going to be back in episode 3 telling you all about the different types of yarn you can get and how to hold your yarn when you're crocheting. So that video should be along next week. Until then, happy hooking!